That's fine, Brad.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Iron Bru podcast. Brad Mel, Matt Blanchard, Matt Ellis. And we're broadcasting live tonight because we are joined once again on the podcast by Iron Chairman Peter Swann. How are you doing, Peter?
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. Now, it's been a few months since we last spoke to you. Now, obviously, a lot has gone on in that time. When we last spoke, it was just after the season sort of wrapped up prematurely. And the EFL, they took forever, to make the decision as to what was going to happen. So with that in mind, given the whole situation with where we are, it's a rather big one to start with. But at present, how's the club doing financially?
We're okay. We've got the same issues we had at the beginning of the lockdown, and those issues are certainly 2/3 of our income we are short, and we are trying to work that out to the best we can. It's not easy. As you can say, there are a lot of other clubs in similar positions, some in better positions, some not, and we're here and we'll be here, and there isn't a risk at this moment in time, as long as the monies that are coming from the EFL come pretty quick, to be honest.
Yeah, you mentioned that money from the EFL, and it was stated that they were going to give a rescue package, but what's the practicalities of that? Have you seen any of that money yet?
No, not at all. We've been told what hopefully come in. There have been a few bits which have been advances of money that really is stuff that we would have in the future, so that doesn't really help us in the long term. It has helped us in the short term, but we're hoping that over the coming weeks now we get the rescue package that's been so talked about. Frustrating as it is, we're okay, and the next couple of months are pretty key for us, especially if we can get some crowds back in. But like I say, we're just living. We're almost living a sort of week to week at the minute, just waiting for that money to come through.
So you suggested that we would be on track to break even before the COVID pandemic. So how big is an impact and dent has it left in the club's finances?
I think at the time we were about 2.3 million short on the break even, which we'd done from February and March. So which I suppose is lucky and unlucky to a point. No money had been planned to put into the club. From our point of view, we'd got ourselves to a great position where the club could stand on its own 2 feet, and we've managed to get that down probably by a few 100,000 with some of the work that we've done, and we've done quite a bit of work. Our budget is now a third of what it was 2 years ago, so we have done a lot of work, and we are streamlining the club so we can work within our means. So it's still a big number, and that will depend on anybody coming into the match. If you've got people coming in buying tickets and merchandise and food and drink, we can eat into that, but that really is a figure just under 2 million, that with nobody coming in, nobody buying anything, that's where we are short. So it is quite a task for all of us, but we're on with it, and I'm really pleased with the way that my team at the club are working on making sure that we can get through this COVID-19 travesty, to be honest.
You're just staying with it for 1 minute, and one expense that obviously the club, possibly the club will be fielding. It was argued that towards the end of the season, before it wrapped up, that one of the reasons for finishing was that COVID testing would prove too expensive for the clubs to finish the season, especially in League Two. Obviously, we're back in training now, pre-season. We know testing's changed since then, but what is that costing the club? How much is the testing? And then, what has changed to allow us to start that season?
Okay, well, we're certainly not testing as much as the Champ and the Premier were at the end of last season, and the playoff teams. I believe it's around about £100 a test per player. Those figures sort of, if you imagine it, they came back in a couple of weeks ago to do stage 1 of training, which was non-contact. So they get tested before that, and then they get tested every week. So you can imagine the cost is quite high. That now the players are in as well. You've got the fact that they're off furlough, so we're having to finance that, and everybody else that's really working in the club now will be off furlough or part-time furlough. So this is when the costs ramp up, and we really do need that money now. We've been told it's coming, but we really could do with that extra money now just to get us through. But we're doing okay, and we're controlling things, and we'll be ready for the season start.
In addition to the testing, what other sort of hoops do the club need to jump through to make sure we're ready for the new season?
Well, if you've been down to the ground or seen anything, we're all fenced off. We've got people testing and temperature testing coming in. We've got to do a lot of work with our local safety advisory group, which we're doing at the minute, because in the end, it doesn't matter whether the government say you can have people in or you can do this. You've got to actually make sure that your local safety group is with you on this, and we are at the minute working very, very closely with them to make sure it's correct. So people have to fill out medical forms in the morning. If they're coming during the day, they'll be on a list. They then are tested, temperature tested, and if their temperature is high, they're given 15 minutes, sit in their car and hopefully cool down a little bit, and then if their temperature does come down, they're sent home. Anybody with a positive test will be isolated from the team, and at this moment in time, we had no positive tests the first time around, and I don't know the other ones. We've only just done those, but generally it's a tight ship. It's very difficult, very different. When you go inside, you've got a mask on. When you're outside, you don't have a mask on. You're trying to keep your meter distance from everybody. But we're quite close knit. The people that are there on the ground, there's not too many strangers there, so we're all together and we're all in it together. So hopefully, and fingers crossed, we can get through this.
Well, as we say, the pre-season started to get underway. We've had a couple of friendlies already. Now, obviously, I think they were announced shortly before the kickoffs, probably in a way to, keep fans away from the ground, just in case any were tempted to come down. With, the announcements, I think yesterday or the day before, that some non-league clubs now can allow fans back into the stadiums. Has there been any indication behind the scenes of a sort of roadmap to getting fans back in, even if it's just, friendlies at a reduced capacity?
No, not for us. We're still working to an October date for fans to be back in the stadiums. Obviously, it's quite a wide sweeping statement they've done with regards to letting people into grounds. I mean, there's a lot around that. Like I said, your safety groups are still going to have a big say in that, even on non-league. So it will be interesting to see how that happens and how that works. And then it's just another step. Things are changing, every week. I'm still hoping, beyond hope, that the start of the season we can have fans in. We are a month away. Things have changed really, if you look at the last month, tremendously. So hopefully we can have that, but we do need a couple of weeks because there's a lot of work in getting people in and out the stadium, the one-way systems. How do we get people to their seats? How do they leave to go to the toilets at half time? All the simple things that we take for granted have to be done in a certain way. So I would have thought we'll know a couple of weeks before we're due to open up to fans. I envisage that will be limited capacity. I think it's limited capacity in non-league as well. I think that's one of the things that have come out today. I don't think it's a lot, but hopefully the fact that we've got a 9.5 or 9,000 capacity stadium, if we get to 25%, then the majority of home fans can get in, which would be nice. But like I say, there's still a lot of work to be done on that. If you come with a group and they're in your bubble, we're going to sit you in an area and that'll be your area, and it might not be the seat you've booked or anything like, there is so much involved in this. But the only thing I'll say is that everybody who's a season ticket holder, they will get preference to the first time we open the gates to fans. In the meantime, we've got a meeting this week with regards to streaming for season ticket holders, being free for season ticket holders. We're just trying to get the finalisation of that at the minute this week. Hopefully that will be done on Friday or tomorrow, actually. So hopefully by the end of the week that will be sorted, and whether that includes some away games and bits and pieces. But we're on with it. We're trying to make it work for everybody. But this is all new to us as well. So if everybody can be patient, we'll try and notify everybody if anything changes.
Do we know how many more friendlies we're likely to get in before the start of the season?
We've got at least 4, maybe another one. I think we're just trying to fill in another date at the minute. But Two of those might have changed with the dates that just come through for the Checker Trade and the League Cup. So we will fit them in, and they virtually become part of our pre-season training.
You mentioned the streaming of the games just there. Obviously, I follow as it stands. They can only broadcast Tuesdays. Is there indications that it is definitely going to be able to broadcast Saturday games?
Yeah, I think whatever the timings are, and they've got to be confirmed. It will be when the match is live. It will be when the match is live. Whether we play at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, maybe not. I suppose that depends if clubs can. I mean, if we're going to Exeter, maybe it's easier for us to have a later kickoff. If we're just down the road, maybe it's an earlier kickoff. I think that if you can imagine the difficulties in trying, if we drew Exeter away in the first 2 weeks of trying to get there and back in a day, because it's not going to be very practical to stay over anywhere because there's nowhere to stay. And even then, whether you're going to be in the right place, you just don't know. So there are a lot of practicalities we have to try and get right. And like I say, in the coming week, a lot of those dates and times and the fixture list coming out, hopefully next week, will give us more of an idea of what we need to do.
You mentioned that season ticket holders will get preference in terms of tickets to games when fans are allowed back into the stadium.
Yeah.
How many season tickets have we sold so far?
We've sold, I think, between 600 and 700.
And how does that compare to kind of the general average year?
That's about a third of what we would normally sell.
How concerning is that?
Yeah, of course it's concerning, but I can understand why people aren't buying season tickets, and I don't think it's down to the fact that we've got a date now, we've got everything. I think it's down to finances. I think it's down to the people who may have lost their jobs or be furloughed. There's a lot involved in that. There's a lot of people. A lot of our fans are a little older, and maybe they're not that keen on coming to matches. So the streaming will be a big help. If they buy a season ticket, they will get that streaming free. So there's still a few bits to do, and it's. I think there'll be some add-ons. We're trying to do some add-on bits within the football club to give those season ticket holders a bit more value. And we know it's not going to be easy for everybody, but again, it just depends. If they open the doors to 25% of our fans, first game of the season, we're going to be, we're going to have a couple of thousand in there. So we've only sold 600 season tickets, so there will be room. We should be able to get through it. But in the meantime, that shortfall is what we are talking to the EFL about, and as are every other club, and that's really what we're asking them to help us with.
Do we know what proportion of season tickets have been donated for money for lost matches?
Sorry, what do you mean?
As part of the deal as it was last season, if you're renewing, you had the option to donate the extra money to the club.
Some people have done that, or they've taken up the offer of the cheaper season ticket. A lot of people. It is a difficult situation. I know the club said we couldn't afford to pay the cash back, and we couldn't. There have been some exceptional circumstances where we've talked to people who desperately needed that money, and we have worked with them. But generally, our discount off the season ticket, which I think was about £60, so you can get a season ticket, I think, for £300 now. It is a good deal. And if you get the live streaming as well, it just depends what our fixture list is. We could miss 2 home games or 3 home games, or we could miss 1 home game in the first 2 weeks if we don't have games in front of fans, or we might not miss any. So it's we're still a bit in the air, but we are working on that at the minute, and our new CEO Leanne is working very, very hard on that.
Seen a number of other clubs suggesting that there'll be no away fans allowed in the first instance when football returns. Is that something the club will also be doing?
I think we'll just follow the guidelines. I think when you look at it, it makes sense to a point, because we can look after our area, we can look after our fans, we can look after us. We have no control of anybody who's going to travel a couple of hours on a train or a coach or a car. So I would have thought initially, yes, no fans is probably a good idea. I suppose, like all football clubs, we're probably sitting there going, who could I have at home who has the least impact on fans travelling? Some who only bring 75 or maybe 100 fans, they're the teams you'd want in the first couple of games. What you don't want is a home tie against Mansfield being one of the ties that you can't have fans to, or Grimsby, do you? You can't have that. That would be a disaster. But we'll know next week whether the EFL have taken that into consideration with clubs, but some clubs are not going to be happy and some aren't.
Let's move on a little bit then. And there's obviously a new salary cap introduced to League One and League Two, and it seems a little bit of a minefield for fans to understand. Can you explain it in simple terms what it means for the club?
I wish I could really. I think, listen, I mean, yes, over the years, it has been necessary for there to be more financial control in the divisions. And I'm not talking about just Leagues 1 and 2, I'm looking about Championship as well. You know, the Premiership have gone off on this fantastic journey of billionaires and multimillionaires playing football, fantastic. And the EFL and the Championship, of this dream of getting to the golden land is exactly what it is, and people have overspent. It's quite clear, and Deloitte did a good piece on this in June with regards to salary capping, and their suggestion was that you cap your salary at 70% of your turnover. Now, a lot of clubs have, how we say, manoeuvred the turnover side of that in one way or another, be that selling an asset or whatever. Now, the EFL, in all their wisdom, can and have always had the ability to stop those things happening. They've always had the ability to take points, do relegation, do fines. They've always had that ability, but over the years have never really been strong enough on penalties. And that was my argument. It's, if you have a break-even point at your football club and you can afford 5 million budget, you should be able to do that. If you afford a 1.5 million, you should be able to do that. I think it's unfair for a club like us to have a budget only 1 million less than Sunderland, or a million less than Rotherham, or whoever's in the division at the time. I think if your club can break even, genuinely break even, and it's all about monitoring from their point of view, then that's the way it should be done. It's a sustainability model which works. If that model had had proper policing that they put in now with the salary capping, which is penalties, huge fines, you know, relegation, being kicked out of the league, if that had been done in previous years, I do not think some of the clubs that have been in trouble would have been in trouble. So that's my opinion. That everybody's aware of that opinion, but the league voted on a salary cap. We weren't of the mind that it was a good idea, but in unity, we have agreed with the other clubs so that we can all work together now going forward. And hopefully, you know, we were in a very good position because we'd already got a break-even sustainability model earlier in the year ready for this season. So actually, the salary cap was above where we were going to have our wages. So we are actually in a really good position. And even though I argued that it should be based on turnover as a salary cap, that this benefits clubs like us. I mean, it basically leveled the playing field up for clubs who don't have a lot of income. So, you know, ourselves, the Accringtons, all the clubs that have small grounds now can have a budget well within and close to other clubs. Well, eventually, after they do the so-called transition period, and which, you know, you've probably seen a lot of clubs signing players on 2 and 3 year deals. Without getting right into it, those 2 and 3 year deals do not affect the salary cap. So basically, if you can imagine it, say somebody was on £4,000 a week deal done before the salary cap came in, they would only count for the top average in the league, whether that be £1,300 or £1,400, but they wouldn't get penalised on the other because it was an existing contract. And if that's as clear as mud, that's probably what it is. It's very, very difficult. Pages and pages of stuff that's been rushed through since March and February. But we are sitting down. I believe the PFA are sitting down with the EFL, and things, hopefully, there'll be some sort of compromise along the way. But at the minute, we're working towards that salary cap. We're working well within it. Just another pointer there. We've gone down the route of under 24 players, and certainly a younger side. That benefits us within the salary cap because under 21 players do not count in that salary cap.
In terms of the 5 players we brought in, they were obviously ahead of the salary cap being introduced. So would they count as an average? And the ones that are obviously over 21.
The ones that we finalised at the beginning of the season were all within the salary cap proposals and within our proposals. As I said, our proposals and our break-even point was actually less than the salary cap. So, you know, we'd set our stall out a year ago how we were going to be. It was just delayed a little bit with what happened last season. And coming into this season with COVID, it delayed it a little bit more. But we were on the right road. So, you know, our investment in under 21 players and the under 23 squad is a real key part of that. And that's probably going to help us going forward.
You mentioned there at the minute we are working within that salary cap, but comparing it to previous seasons, you know, where our budget has been sometimes in excess of 5 million, how difficult is it to ensure that the wage bill is kept within that cap? And I guess on another point, when you think back to those seasons where we were in the playoffs, your first couple, with what's come into play now, is there a part of you that regrets spending as much as you did then?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's an interesting one. That's almost a time machine question, isn't it? If you think about it. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. It's first of all, we've never had a budget over 5 million. Our budget has always been in and around 3 to 3.5. That's the money we supported the club through 5 years in League One. So we've never had we've had a budget and we've always been competing at the top, but we've actually done quite well, because if you imagine the teams that we're up against, the majority of those had 10 and 12 million pound budgets. So even though we were spending that money, it was within our means to do that. And I thought we did really well. I thought we spent well. I thought we bought well. We made a few mistakes along the way. Of course you do. You're never going to get every player right. So looking back on it, no, I don't regret it. I do not regret getting us up out of League Two with an extra 1.5 million that I put in. I do not regret supporting the managers and you know, building a team that competed for 3 years in the top 7, including 2 playoffs. You know, I regret the last season, but there were lots of things, as we've already spoken about, which was our downfall one way or another, and I take full responsibility for that. But I don't regret it, because that's what I wanted to do when I come in. That's what I wanted the fans to enjoy when we came in. And if you know, yes, there were some difficult times, but generally the football played in those few years was exceptional, and we got some really, really good players out of that. So, you know, we've had a go, but the club is fine. It's not in debt. The club doesn't owe banks. The money that's in there is owed to the family. It is not owed to anybody else. We are not an indebted club. I could sell this club for £0 tomorrow. That's not going to happen, by the way. but we're fine. That hasn't had any risk with us. In fact, I invested a lot more in that, in buying the stadium and paying off the original debts when I first took over, than I did actually in subsequent years. So I put the club in a more secure position from day one. So no one could come in and kick us off the land or kick us off the stadium or say they owed this or owed that. So no, I don't regret it. My decisions, I can't go back on those, because you make them at the time. And I believe that regardless of what other people think, they're the decisions I had to make at the time, whether that's hiring or firing or whatever it may have been. They are in the past, and we are now here. We have to work very hard to stay alive and focus on our future, and we shall do that.
Over the past couple of years, we've spent quite a bit of money on agent fees. Are they factored into the salary cap?
Yes, they are. They're all part of it. So in League Two, you've got a £1.5 million salary cap, and included in that is all accommodation, anything that you give the player or the agent's fees, and national insurance. So your actual budget is probably around about 1.2 to 1.3, and then all those extras are in there. That includes appearance money. That includes any bonuses during the season that you pay for them to win matches, apart from the full-on promotional bonuses. If you go up, that can be done separately. So you can imagine there's a lot of work having to go into this to make sure it works. And like I say, with the signings we have now and the 30 players we have on the books, including the 5 lads who came up from the 18s, we're under that. So I'd like to think that we've we've done our job and we're in a position now to kick on.
We always seem to be kind of one of the highest in the league when it comes to agent fees. Would you be looking to change that and potentially try and do deals without paying agents moving forward?
Yeah, I think, yeah, in League Two, you will be when you're coming down. What you got to remember is when we came down, there was outstanding contracts still that had, well, they've only just finished this season, haven't they? That were with us for another season. And usually what happens with your agents fees, they're carried over into that year. So say you pay a 5% agents fee on 3 years, it's usually paid in 3 tranches. So even though we weren't in League One, we were still paying League One fees in League Two. So I think until that settles down, and certainly this year it will be a lot less because our budget's a lot less, you'll see that come down naturally anyway. I think there is certainly going to be a change, a tide of change within the agents' remit, because I do not think the players will be wanting to lose 5% of their money or 2.5% of their money. I think a lot of players may go without agents, or agents will start to understand that maybe most of the money needs to be spent on future value. So maybe on a sell-on or something like that, maybe the way they go. But generally, the fees will come down anyway. And I think the way that we're going, where we're going to use the academy moving into the 23/21s, moving into the first team, will probably alleviate a lot of those fees.
Do we know if there will be any penalties for clubs that exceed the salary cap?
Oh yes, they are big. You can get fined stupid amounts of money. Now, like I say, I still think there's a little bit of work to do on that. I think clubs need to work closer with the EFL, and the EFL need to be a little bit smarter with the way they work with clubs with regards to management accounts and cash flows. That seems to be happening. Certainly, we can see that's happening at the minute, but there's still a long way to go, because what you've got to imagine now, what they're saying is to an investor, so someone like me or anybody who wants to come into the football club, is that you might have a spare million, but you can't put it into your club. So maybe gone are the days that January you can buy a Kevin Van Veen and a Paddy Madden and a Josh Morris or whatever, and you cannot make that final push for promotion, or you cannot get yourself out of relegation because you have got no money in your salary cap and you're not allowed to spend. So in that way, it's frustrating because we can't offer the fans something different, you know, and I think players like that, and the players we brought in, the loan players, the Ivan Tonys and the Ryan Yates, who would have been over the salary cap, we'd have missed out on seeing them play. So I'm a little bit disappointed that we won't be able to do that. But saying that, the challenge of bringing some quality young players through excites me a lot and should excite the fans. And I do believe that we have a squad here with some real potential in it. And I'm very excited of what I've seen at the minute, the attitude and the way that we're going forward. So as frustrating as it is, you know, we're going to have to work as close as we can with it and avoid penalties, because, you know, we run the club well and we will run it well through this. Those penalties will never hit us.
We've had a question sent in from Andy just on the salary cap. He says, do you think there'll be a legal challenge to it, or do you think that it'll just, you know, it is here to stay?
Well, the legal challenge is the PFA now talking with the EFL. That is going on. That is the challenge. It's not a legal challenge as such, but you know, we hope that all people can work together on it. I think it is time. I just think I do not think it's right that big teams cannot pay wages to their ability. What is the point of a team making a £10 million profit and only having a £2.5 million wage bill? Where will that money go? You know, that money will just go back to the owners. It will just go back into other businesses because they can't put it into football, and football misses out. You see, if you sell a player for £1 million, you know, I think fans would want you to spend that on some exciting players or to improve your squad. That won't be happening because it can't happen, and that is the worry, and that's the disappointment, I'm afraid. of a salary cap. But I do think it's here in one form or another, and we'll be fighting to see if we can, through this season, get it right for next season and maybe have it against income.
Let's move a little bit closer to Scunthorpe United then. And at the end of last season, as we know, Russ Wilcox was in charge. I think straight after that season ended, he said in a few interviews that he was looking to be in charge next season. He wanted the job. In regards to your interview on Radio Humberside, when you announced that Russ wouldn't be taking charge, it seemed, I think, from a fan's perspective, that decision came quite late to you, and that in a way it caught you off guard as well. Was that the case?
No, I don't think I was off guard. I mean, the most important thing is that I brought Russ back in for a particular job in the club, and that was to bring our youth through the 23s and the 18s, work with Tony Dawes, and really establish our 23s as a platform for players to come into the first team, so that those 18-year-olds, when they came out, could go and play against men, could come and go on loan, and under the guidance of a very, very good coach and a friend. And that's why I brought him in. He'd got Scunthorpe at his heart, and he still has, and he's a very important part of the team. I said when he came in that whatever happened, if there were any doubts or we never agreed on the finalities of him taking over the team, that he would return to the 23s and do the job that I wanted him to do. And that's exactly what happened. You've got to be 100% comfortable with everything. And, after making mistakes in the last couple of years, I wanted to make sure that this was right for everybody. Myself, Russ, whoever else was going to be involved. So, that decision was made. Russ didn't want to take it under the circumstances that I wanted, and I didn't want to put Russ into that position either if that wasn't the case. So, I had to go to Plan B, which was, looking for somebody who could do that particular job that I wanted at the club, who could bring through the youth, who perhaps hasn't had a failure at a manager's level, and would give me something a bit different. And I've known Neil for a few years now. I've played golf with him. I've spent some time with him and chatted to him. And I had a chat. I spoke to Notts County and said, look, can I have a chat with him? I went and had a chat with him, and we discussed where I wanted the club to go, how we were going to be limited with the budget, how I saw it happening. Did he fancy it? And of course, being born in Scunthorpe and Scunthorpe through and through, I think it's been a fantastic opportunity for him. And I do like to think that that's what I've given a lot of my managers, is a huge opportunity one way or another, whether that's some of the biggest budgets that the club has ever had, or whether it's all the support when it hasn't been going so well. So putting Neil in charge, I didn't have one questionable time about doing that. He's the man for the job, and we'll work together as best we can to try and get through this difficult period, and then start to build the team up in the coming years.
Given that Russ decided not to take the manager's job on permanently, did he give any reasons for not wanting to do that?
Oh, not that I'd like to talk publicly about. Myself and Russ talked about this for quite a while, and there were reasons. He had reasons, I had reasons. So for me, that subject's closed. He's our under-23s manager. I have a lot of respect for him and his family, and he will do a fantastic job in supporting this football club as we go forward. Should that decision have been done earlier on in the pre-season? No, I don't think it could do, actually. I think we were all trying to just manage. I mean, we hadn't, to be honest, we've not even got back into pre-season. We'd cancelled everything. We were all furloughed. We couldn't really talk to each other apart from over a Zoom meeting. So the first time I got a chance, I think, to talk to Russ was, on the training pitch with about 5 meters between us. So, fortunately the sun was shining. That's when we started to discuss it. And of course, the financials were getting harder and harder because of the salary capping and what was happening behind the scenes. So, no, listen, it might have been late, but it wasn't late in the fact that it had affected anything. It didn't really affect our planning. It didn't really affect anything with regards to our friendlies or what we were doing. So, no, I'm happy that we came to the decision when we did, and by moving on as quickly and making that decision quickly, we're able to make sure that the club's in a stable position.
Yeah, you mentioned bringing in Neil really quickly. Was he someone you always had in mind for the role at some point in the future? And I suppose, what kind of qualities do you see in him?
No, I'll say I hadn't identified him as a future manager. Well, I identified him as a very good person and a good coach. You know, there are a lot of people out there on that list that you could have put in there first time, I think. The fact that I had spent a bit of time with him, chatted to him, seen what he'd done at Wimbledon, seen what he'd done under Ardley at Wimbledon and then at Notts County, saw how he approached the games. I liked what I saw, and I thought it was a very, very easy decision to go and have a chat to him. And then once we'd had a chat, and it was only him I went to, as soon as I'd gone back, I sort of thought to myself, how had I worked this process before? And it was really important to me to go back and see how I'd approached some of the managers before, the last couple that hadn't worked for me. And I felt it was important to go approach somebody, talk to them, you know, who was going to fit in the mould that the club wanted going over the next few years with all the challenges we've got. So I've done that, and we sat down and talked. And you know, I probably got him early on as soon as I said that I wanted him as manager, because he loves the club, he loves the area. I think we're very lucky to have somebody like him at the helm, and you know, I've got a lot of respect for him. So he will bring qualities that a lot of others haven't had, but I also think he'll bring his own identity eventually. It's going to be difficult because, you know, we are going through a difficult time. It's not easy to stamp your identity on something when you are limited in what you can do. But I'm sure he will enjoy coming back to Scunthorpe and spending a lot of time in the town and around the people.
Yeah, and I think obviously you'll have definitely noticed that it's been a pretty overwhelmingly positive appointment, and the atmosphere around the club, I think, changed almost overnight. You know, given the fact that the fans, you know, we've not seen football for ages, there's not been that much to do, you know, on like a Saturday. You mentioned how Neil fits the sort of ambitions and, you know, things you're planning with the club, but was in the back of your mind the need that you thought this time around, was there a need to appoint a manager that really would bring back that excitement and, you know, connect with the fans?
Yeah, I think not just connecting with the fans. I think the most important thing is that, can he deliver what we need at this moment in time? I think that was the first thing. You know, has he got everything that we need as a football club? It's not going to be easy. We've probably got a lesser budget than Notts County and some of the conference clubs. You know, it's a difficult time financially, but we've got that support anyway in-house. What did I want him to do? I've got a great group of lads I need him to get the best out of, and to mould into a team how he wants to play. That was quite important. We talked about how we'd like things to happen, what we think the club and the fans want to see, whether that be 2 up top, 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 3 in the middle, whatever it was to excite the fans. And I think we were both unanimous in our feelings. We wanted to see attacking football. We wanted to see wingers going down and taking on players. We wanted to see people tackling. You know, all the things we all want to see in a football match were the things we talked about for hours. And we talked about football for hours, believe it or not. And it was so important that we felt we were on the right page, which we are. And in that, he can deliver that. And you know, I know it's a bit of a paradox, I suppose, in a way that we always talk about, well, it's a long-term job. Of course, it's a long-term job. The long-term job is to get the club stable and bring through youth so that we can benefit from a salary cap if we're bringing through under 21s. We can sell players and move them on to better things. And we can occasionally have a promotion or a great year or a cup run and just embed ourselves like that. I think that's the most important thing. And we can only then go as far as the quality of our team and obviously the person at the helm who's doing that. So, you know, I wish him all the luck. And I know, like you said, the fans have taken to him. And I hope that the appointment works for everybody.
You've mentioned, Peter, that in the past you've brought managers in to do a certain job, i.e. Robins, to secure League One status. What particular job is it that Neil's been brought in that kind of same idea?
Yeah, I mean, he's been brought in to mould the young players we have. I mean, obviously with the addition of his number 2, who's been quite popular as well, who I met last week. I think it's going to fit with him. His first job, what does he enjoy doing? Working with the young lads, bringing them through. So that's not too much of a transition from where he was. We're at a level where I think he can develop as well as a manager in his first job. I'll support him, as I have done all our managers, for as long as I can. And you know that you all know there's a huge pressure on a chairman, regardless of how your manager does, to a point. And I'm sure that he will get the best out of what we've got. And then as we go along, we've got a plan to identify players as we go forward. We talk about them. He knows how we bring in players in the football club, and he's happy with that. I'm sure he would have liked to have brought in loads of other players to support, but they've got to work within this system that we've got, with under 24s primarily being our target market, and occasionally anybody who's over that would be if there's a value to them. And I think we have to look at value in players and value in our team. And that's how we're going to strengthen as we go over the coming seasons.
Will he be giving any input on those signings, or will he just be giving the players to kind of coach and, as you say, mould and try and develop?
Well, he'll get those players anyway from the 18s that Tony brings in. And then the lads who go into the 23s, which Russ will have a say in as well. But now he's here, he will have a say in those players. You know, the fact that we've signed players before doesn't mean that we just decided that there's 5 players or 6 players we're going to sign them. You know, these players have been on our radar for whatever period of time. They've gone through a scouting process. They have gone through details. What I didn't want is the same situation I had, if you remember, with Nick Dawes, when we went, we took however many players to Austria. And when we came back, I think I had a squad of 14, you know, because we hadn't recruited correctly that season. And then we panicked and recruited the wrong players for the wrong reasons. And what the most important thing is, we needed a certain character of player and style of player, which was identified through all our networks. You know what it is. It's a need. We find the need. We identify. We talk about it. We repeat that process. Then we decide to sign. That's done. You know, a lot of that information was in there. In fact, Frank Vincent trialled in a game about 12 months ago when we played the under 23s. Also, Kelsey. So Kelsey Mooney came up and played against Sheffield United in an under 23s game last season. We kept an eye on them. We've watched them. Aaron Jarvis was in the Luton side. He couldn't get in the Luton side because of Danny Hilton and Marriott and the rest of the team. It was a very, very good side. Went down to non-league and then decided that he wanted to come back into the league, and we got a call. We thought we got him on our radar. We knew there was a possibility there, so we brought him in. Manny was a target. We needed probably one of the best defenders out of non-league, and I believe Manny is. So we're very excited about that. He adds a bit of grit, and he is a very classy player. Who I missed? I always miss that. Too many players on my mind. But so all those players that we brought in were identified and done. Now, there's no way that we're going to wait to sign a manager who may have been or may have not been signed before the season, before pre-season training. That I will take responsibility for. Every player that has ever been signed at this club has been paid by us, paid by me, and we have had the final decision, because the finances rule. Finances rule how we decide on a player. If we can afford them, we bring them in. If we can't, we can't. And that's how we have to do it. And in the end, every player that's come in knows the situation. We learn about them. And I think we lost that over the last couple of years. We tried something different with Stuart, and we tried something different with Paul, and it didn't work. It just didn't work. So we have to start again. And this is where we are. So, yeah, I believe we've got value in our team at the minute. So superb players. It's not a bad team. And his remit, Neil's remit will be to get the best out of them, and there's no pressure. The most important thing for us is we get through the next 12 months, 18 months intact as a football club and still in League Two. That's the most important thing.
You mentioned there that Paul Hurst's signings didn't quite work. I'm just looking at a couple of the players that we presume that he had an input in bringing in. Obviously, Issa, McAtee, and Gilead. Some would argue two of those are probably our most saleable assets. So, is that fair to say that those signings maybe didn't work?
No, I probably there was more to the fact of the players not going out under Paul, which was with the issue. You know, well, like with every manager, we have to get players out. If you imagine the squad we had when Paul arrived was huge. There were people on contracts there that needed to be moved on. Now, no players got moved on as there should have been. And to be honest, we had 5 more players than we should have had by January. So those players that we signed were extras, which I had to make a decision on, because that was money we didn't have. So yes, as players, fantastic, glad I'd done that. But the other part of the job is to get players out, and we hadn't done that. But you know, I'm trying not to. I feel the last 2 years for me have been a failure for me personally, and I want to get that back. I want to amend that. I want to get back into doing the right things and making the right choices, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work very hard. I've learned by those mistakes. I've spent hours and hours mulling over what I've done wrong, also what I've done right. And I intend to make it right. And this is the start of where it happens. And this is how we're going to develop through the next season. It's not going to be easy, but I can assure you as a chairman, I am as fully committed. I have the same drive and ambitions I had since the day I first set foot in Scunthorpe, and I will continue to do that.
I think something the fans were really excited about from Neil's interview was that, you know, he was talking about reaching out to the community and making the fans feel really valued again. I suppose we've had a couple of questions sent in about this. Are you working on a plan to do that? Are you kind of coming up with ideas how to do that? I appreciate, obviously, at the moment it's a little bit difficult with the COVID situation. But yeah, have you got any plans really in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, we do quite a lot for the community. I mean, you know, we go out, our players go out into the community. We do a lot. Probably we didn't have the personalities to do that over the last 2 seasons. And you know, this is different. I think when Graham was here, there was a different atmosphere because he knew the area, and I think that's the same with Neil. I think Neil knows the area. It's easier for him to go out into the area and talk to people about the area, and I think that helps straight up. That gives us an advantage where we can actually understand more or less what we need to do. We're trying to connect. I mean, we do a huge amount, as much as we can for Scunthorpe. We're trying to develop everything. We're trying to make it a better football club. It's not easy. It's a very difficult business to be in. Football, it's not simple these days, as you've seen. It's affected. This has really affected everybody. The fact that we can't get fans in. You know, regardless of what they say in the Premiership about, well, fans only account for however many million a year, they get more through TV money. I think this has really shoved it home to them how it does affect them. And I'm hoping that at the higher level will mean that fans can get into matches a little cheaper, because, you know, we've kept our prices pretty much affordable for the last 7 years. We've not really changed it too much. We might have had to it recently because of the situation, but the price of tickets to go and watch Premier and Championship matches is horrendous. You know, if they've got that much income, then it should be cheaper for everybody. I'd love it to be cheaper at our level, but, you know, our 3,500, 4,000 fans that come in are really important to us, and they'll keep the club going over the coming years.
You talk about personality, and we've mentioned him already, but of course, Neil Cox has brought in Mark Lillis as his assistant, so obviously a definite character there. And again, as you said earlier, you know, connected to the fans straight away. At what point in the process, I'm assuming this Mark was Neil's choice. At what point in the process did he bring that up? Of course, Mark told us that, you know, he was looking to come back to the club. So, you know, what were your reactions to that?
Yeah, it was great. I think if Neil had told me before, Neil might not have got the job. But no, Mark. Hopefully, he'll take that from me. I think his nickname's what's his nickname? Boona. I think something to do with curry or something like that. I think anyway. You don't want to tell me that story yet. I don't think he don't trust me completely. Listen, he brings. I said to Neil, anything he wants to do within the structure of the team, apart from the under-23 manager, and was up to him. Sadly, we lost Kevin. you know, I want to at least put it on record that I appreciate what Kevin's done for us. But his choice was then to bring in Mark and have him in there as support. And listen, I think he'll do really, really well for us. I think, again, another person who knows Scunthorpe, who's very much on the side of the young player who wants to see the best out of them. Huge amount of experience to tap into there. And I think that's what Neil wants to do. It's I don't want to call him a crutch because that sounds terrible, doesn't it? But a proper number two. Yeah. So, you know, if you're at sea and your captain needs a number two, I think he's absolutely perfect for the job. And looking forward to spending some time with him and having a chat and listening to his stories. I certainly think he's got a few.
From the fans' position, there already seems to be a real partnership between Cox and Lillis, and of course you've seen them working together now on the training ground. Is that something that's come across in kind of the early stages of the partnership, and how is it different to previous managers and how they've worked with their assistants?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I'm sure Neil took a lot of time over it and wanted to find the right person to support him and fit in. And I think that's why I've took Neil on, is because we think along the same lines, is that you don't want too many differences between people. And certainly when it comes down to football, you know, football is football. You can have views on football, which are great, but really you've all got to pull together. It is a teamwork right the way down from me all the way down to Stano and people who clean the stadium. You know, it's really, really important to make sure that everybody's valued. And while I've got a minute, I just want to thank the groundsmen who've worked so tirelessly hard over however many months to keep everything. The pitch is fantastic. The training facilities are fantastic. So I just want to say that whilst I got a chance. But everybody's working very, very hard. And yes, there is a team. I like to think now that the work we've done, certainly since Russ came in as well, has helped us build this sort of team ethic. I also think that the players that have come in, I also think the players that are here, the younger ones, are not daunted by anything now. They know they've got a fair chance. They're being treated respectfully, and they're treating us respectfully. The atmosphere amongst the players is great. You know, I know them all. I see them every day. You know, the most important thing for me is that we keep this team spirit going right the way through the club, and I think that's been fractured a few times over the last couple of years. In many ways, I think just clashes of personality, players, managers, whatever it is, hasn't worked. And I don't think there are any premises and clashes. I don't think that's in Neil's or Mark's makeup. They take people as they are. And even, you know, if somebody's a little bit off, I think the idea is put an arm around them and find out what the issue is first before chastising them. And I think that's really important. But he's a hard taskmaster. They both are. They will make sure these lads are fit and the fittest. And I think we have lacked that. We've lacked fitness, certainly over the last couple of years. So, yeah, you're right. There is a great spirit, and it's working really, really well at the minute.
You mentioned Kevin Pressman. Just a couple of things on this. Was it the club's decision to let him go?
It was Neil's decision that he wanted to bring in Mark. So we couldn't have another coach on the books. So sadly, and we've already got one goalkeeping coach. So to have two was probably a bit of a luxury. But in the end, that Neil will put his hand up and say that's his choice.
Does that mean there's going to be more emphasis on the 23s training with the first team throughout the season then, given that obviously there's no kind of assistant for the under 23s?
No, I think that the 23s will, they've got a programme. It won't be as extensive as you can imagine. So the 23s have got a programme of games. I think it's one every 2 weeks, starting from October. They will train with us. The majority of the squad will train us. I would have thought some of the young lads will go back and train with the youth if we feel that it's getting, I mean, there's 29, 30 players there now. So it is really ideally you want 22, 21, 22. So you take your goalkeepers out, there's probably 5 or 6 of the lads that may go back and train with the youth a few times. But generally, during this fitness stage, everybody's working together. So certainly for the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and even through into October, most of the team will be training together.
Of course, on to Lee Turnbull. He left as head of recruitment, and of course, he finished last season as Russ's temporary assistant. Was he offered the assistant role for the forthcoming season?
He was offered a coaching role, and we talked about it. And again, I've known Lee a long time. It was really important that we had honest talks, and honest talks do hurt. And you know, I'm sad to lose him, but we couldn't come to the agreement that we wanted to. And recruitment had, as you've heard from me today, the recruitment's changing. We want to use our academy players more, our contacts, under 21 contacts. You know, I'd expect Tony Dawes to have more of an input on that, bringing players through the 18s into the first team, and Russ to do that as well. I felt that we'd spent a huge amount of money on recruitment over the last however many years. We worked closely together. It's never been down to one person. It's always been down to a group. I've always said that. There's always been input from everybody. And, you know, so we all take the poor signings along with the good signings, along with the excellent signings. We all understand we take that on our shoulders together. And we do that as a team. So sad to lose him from the club. And I wish him all the best.
Just listening to that, is it safe to assume that the head of recruitment role was basically redundant moving forward?
It was under this system, and with the new salary cap coming in, and our limited budget. I mean, you can't spend 10% of your budget on scouting and recruitment when that is so important to your players, which would have been around about what we would be spending. So, yeah, we have, as you've seen, we've changed a lot of things. You know, Jim's gone to Sunderland. So we haven't got CEO, but our CEO now is Leanne, who's moved into that role. I'm delighted, but she's more financial, which means I've stepped back into the football side of things a little bit more to get things right until I can step away when we've got every system in place, which is when I have a bit of chance to talk to Tony and Russ and Neil about how that will move forward. Harry has left, which has left Ryan as the new head of analyst, and he will have a bigger say in identifying players that we need as well.
You talk about the recruitment being a joint effort. I know one question that we've had from quite a few of our listeners was how involved was Lee in scouting the players that have already been signed?
Yeah, I mean, all the information that he ever got out of scouting reports is available to us on a computer, as is Y-Scout, as is every scouting platform there is. We have every bit of information. We have, you know, that was always reported to us. So all that information was there. We just had to make those final decisions. So, yeah, I mean, it's just like any job. If you do your job well, which Tony did, there was access to all that information. So it wasn't too much of a problem.
Regarding Harry Jameson, then, we know Stuart McCall didn't really go for the stats. And of course, you said he's recently been replaced. And do you know if there's an area that Cox will utilise?
Yes, I think he's certainly, with Notts County are very much based around analysts and analytics. And I think that is one thing that is being used a lot more now. If you can imagine the platforms that we can actually see everybody on is absolutely, you know, Zoom and Teams now, you can talk to players. You can see what they're like, you know. Obviously, you don't want to see their great houses they're in or their cars, but I mean, generally, they're great to chat to. So you can have initial meetings. You can see what they're like. You can talk to medical staff around the country. You can talk to managers. Everything's accessible now. I think, you know, you have to move forward, and we're moving forward and utilising our analyst, and Neil's very much up for that. He wants to spend some time, I think, going to matches with him, show him what we want from players and what he wants from players. So I think it's great. I think it's a real nice, fresh approach. I'm excited about it, and it fits in with what the club wants to do.
You've mentioned some of the players that we brought in briefly, but given we've not been able to watch any of these so far in pre-season, and you know the majority, I would say the majority are relatively unknown to Scunthorpe fans. Can you give us a bit of a flavour of what to expect from each of them?
Yeah, if I can remember them. I think I signed too many. People were telling me I was signing too many, but no. Yeah, I mean, Kelsey Mooney, like I said, had come to us a year ago and played in a match, and was at Hereford. I think he'd been at Villa, and he'd been brought up through Villa, and he then went to Hereford, spent a bit of time there. When he came to us, he probably was a slip of a lad. Certainly since then he's built himself up. You know, proper forward, got a lot of pace, scored a great goal against Hull this week, getting on the end of a decent cross at the near post. Makes those runs, following in his dad's footsteps, I think, as well. So I met his dad, had a chat to Tommy, and you know, it's an opportunity for him to get back into professional football and use us as a platform. And I think that's what all of the ones that we've signed, and certainly the ones moving forward, will want to use us as a platform. And hopefully we can benefit from that. So, and like I said about Aaron, he was at Luton and then went into non-league, and we brought him out of that, and hopefully he's a non-league striker that we can get a lot out of. Manny, I've seen Manny. I've watched a lot of clips over the last year about Manny, and then when I knew he was available or not available as such, I had to talk to him. Dagenham Redbridge, a small fee for him, but I like to think he is the best, or one of the best centre halves in non-league football. And being in League Two, you've got to look at that as pretty key. He's still young, I think. I can't remember. I think he's 24, 23. But a great attitude, and I think that's been one of the most important things. Fantastic attitude. Lewis Spence was on our radar for the last 18 months. Been playing in Scotland. Had a great season with Ross County, who got promoted. Not out of place in that team. Centre mid, very gritty. I think the fans all like this lad. I think he's got a lot about him. Great quality. And then of the loan players, Frank Vincent, who's come up from Bournemouth. Like I said, I'd watched him last year. I heard he was available. He played at Torquay, so he'd had virtually what was the season at Torquay. Very impressed. And even when I spoke to Neil about that in our initial talks, he was impressed with the lad. And I think he's got a lot of quality. Again, I think the fans will love this. I think they'll love seeing these players play. Very enjoyable. Who have I missed out? I missed out somebody.
Is there any desire at the moment to bring in a couple of experienced players, given that the squad has got a relatively low average age? And I think our oldest player is Kev at 29. Would you believe it? And in addition to that, is the goalkeeping area something that's been highlighted that needs strengthening? It's kind of been a contentious area for the past couple of seasons of whether or not Rory Watson is ready for first team football in the Football League, and is that something the club's been looking at the moment?
Yeah, we look at everything. I think if we take the goalkeeping role, I think Rory's been really unlucky. You know, he's picked up some serious injuries. You know, he came in at one of the most difficult times, the Rotherham game, I remember in particular, where he pulled off some magnificent saves, as well as, you know, being unfortunate to be on the end of a losing result. But he never really has had a run in the game. And you know, we think a lot of Rory. He's a good age. If we can get this season under his belt and perform, and this is his opportunity, then he'll be a very important player to us. And I've got a lot of faith in Rory. Always have. I think young British keepers who are big, tall, and can do a job. I mean, you've got to give them every opportunity. And I also think behind him as well, with Tom and Adam. I mean, we've got a good bunch of keepers there who just need working with, and I'm sure Muzzer's going to get the best out of them. Yeah, the pressure's on. If he doesn't do it, then maybe that is one position we would have a look at. But at this minute, we are completely focused on Rory becoming our first team keeper. But I suppose that's with every position. You know, every position is up. It's up to them to work hard and gain that, and work hard at maintaining that shirt and keeping people out. And I think, you know, that mentality with these under, and as you say young, it's not, isn't it? They're halfway, you know, somebody who's 23, 24, maybe halfway through their career. So, I don't agree that this is a young, inexperienced side. If we go from the back, say we go from the back, and we'll probably talk about Jordan in a minute. Jordan, who's again been horrendous with injuries, and I'm quite happy to talk a bit further about Jordan. You know, one of the most experienced lads we got at right back. Harrison Maguire played over 200 league games. Jacob Badeau's been at Villa, and he was a very, you know, he's got a huge amount of experience, but, you know, enough games to say he's a quality player on the left side there. And then you've got Bootroyd, who's played it, you know, in League One for us, who really has never had the chance at the back there. And you move Manny in as well to support that, and you've got yourself a reasonably experienced back four, I think, at this level. You move into midfield, you've got Gilly and Issa, if you say they're on the wide or whatever we play. Again, two very young lads, but a huge amount of experience in football and Football League. Right in the centre of midfield is probably where we have least of that, but I do think that the lads that are in there, if they give us the energy and the motivation that they're showing in training, will do a fantastic job. Maybe that's an area that we look at, but I don't want to just fill it. I don't want to put a player in the team. And I know Neil Fields was saying that all they're going to do is sit there for a year just to support us. They have to be valued. They have to come in and have a value. And the only way young lads are going to get to understand football and get better is to play. Now, that means they will make mistakes, but they can't be scared to make mistakes. They must get in there. We're never, you know, you can't just go and pick a Stephen Dawson or a Bishop off. They are good because they played since an early age. They are good, and we have to play our lads at an early age. We can't just put older players in there to fill a gap that will stop and stunt the players coming through. They've got to play. So I think in every position we want to do that. Up top, obviously we've got Kev, we've got McAtee, you know, we've got Geordie Hallam, who again, a really freak accident, would have played an important part of the first part of last season. Come back, he's looking really good. You know, we've got Kev, who is Kev. You know, he can score 20, 25 goals, you know, and he probably would have done that last season with a full season under his belt. He's come back, he's hungry. He doesn't like being reminded that he's the oldest in the group, but you know, now he's shaved his beard, at least he doesn't look like some Scandinavian anyway. So at least he's done us all a favour there anyway. So, but again, he's changed his personality. You've got Ryan Colclough, who really, you know, had a year out with an injury, which was again unfortunate for him. He's come back, he's hungry. You know, again, if we get the best out of this lad, we're going to do it. We've got Dalesy, who's come back. He's been, you know, the last two managers haven't really had it for him, and he's been in Scotland. And he don't want to go back to Scotland now, and I don't think that's anything personal. I think it's just he wants to prove himself. We've got Devon, who we brought into the side. I know I'm going to forget some players. We've got the lads coming through as well from the youth. They're really good. Rayner's shown up well. We've still got Hornshaw, who slotted in at right back and did really, really well the other day. Pewey played at right back and in the middle. You know, these lads are, all of them have got something to prove. And I have absolutely no doubts and no question that their age is going to be any handicap in this division. I think they're going to show you the energy, the speed and the excitement that we've probably lacked in the last couple of years.
You mentioned Jordan Clark there, and you're wanting to sort of have a word about him. So let's go on to him now, because as you can imagine, we've had quite a lot of messages sent in to us about him. I think it's very much split at the minute, because I don't think there'll be many doubting his ability on his day. But of course, there is the injury record, and then of course the fact that he was made captain before the manager came in. So maybe some thoughts on Jordan Clark.
Okay, so Jordan's club captain. So basically, I spoke to Jordan. You know, we've worked very hard on getting Jordan back to fitness. Very hard from some really probably career-ending injuries, which probably somebody else would have given up. His character and the way he's approached this has been immense. I see a different person than 5 years ago. I think it's 5 years ago when I first met him. Very, very different person. Very well educated. Wants to know a lot more about the game. So for me, if I can get half a season out of Jordan or 15 games, and he can help with the team, because he's got a lot of experience there, and he's very good with the lads. He's also going to be doing a lot of work within the club as well. So, you know, that community work, the work between the player and the club. So if a player has any issues within the first team, then their contact is Jordan. Jordan then will have the access to the boardroom on board meetings to update us on players, injury, everything. It's a bigger role for Jordan. It is a proper club captain's role. he's going to represent those players, and he's going to represent us and give us a link where we didn't have before. So it's not just a straight up playing job, but that's what I want him to do. I'd love him to come in and play, and he knows that. But I think he's got a lot more to offer this football club, and he's a very loyal man. And I think he deserves, for everything he's put through with his injuries, his constant positivity. I think it would have been so wrong for me not to identify that he's got a lot more to offer than just being a footballer. And that's why he's got the job, and that's why I trust him implicitly. And that's why we've signed him. And he's took a huge pay cut as well. And I have to tell you that he's took a huge pay cut to stay with the club. So it's I'm very proud of the way he's approached this. And I know other people probably haven't seen that in the press because we didn't want to actually say that, because we didn't have to. But now people have asked, and you guys have asked. There you go. So he's the club captain, as in club. Now on the match day, if Jordan's not there, Neil will put another person as captain forward. So and I'm sure that's exactly what he wanted. If that's about playing, that's not about the club links, the club itself.
Neil's made a secret that he's hoping to bring in a couple more players, but do those incomings maybe hinge on getting a few players out, because the squad does look a little bit bloated in certain areas?
I don't know. Where does it look bloated? We've got a lot of attackers and wingers. Well, that's not a bad thing, is it really? I don't know. I don't think. Yeah, Neil would probably want to bring him in, but we have got a process. We have got a set guide to who we need to bring in. We have also got financial restrictions which have to be adhered to. It's not just as easy as getting somebody out, because you're only getting the divisional average back. So, and it's hard enough now for players to get a job, let alone move players on. So it is going to be difficult. He's got a really good squad at the minute, and he's going to use them to his best ability. If we identify in the coming weeks that we need somebody in a certain position, we will sit down and identify a player that will fit in with the club's premise and how we want to go forward. And he knows that. His focus now is just getting through these games, getting the players fit. And that's all I'm asking for.
He did say at the weekend that there was potentially one, maybe two players quite close in terms of coming into the club. Is that still the case?
Yeah, there's one due tomorrow.
Which position?
On the pitch.
Moving on a little bit then, just talking about maybe players going out. Has there been any interest in any of our players this summer?
Yeah, there has.
You're not going to get anything, Matt. Let's move it on then, shall we? We're just going to do a few general topics just to wrap it up, because we are approaching the end here. Of course, it's been announced today that Charlie Goode's made a move to Brentford, and it's rumoured to be 1.5 million. Now, we've seen some people suggesting that he left on a free to Northampton. We just clarified that we did get a fee for that, and then we got a little sell on, and we should have a bit of money coming in today.
Yep, you're correct.
Good.
Can you tell us how much that sell on?
You won't tell us.
You're correct. Everything you just said was absolutely correct. We got a sell on. We got a fee. I'm delighted for him. I texted him when he got promoted. And promotions being the key. And I think with every player, they get value. If Charlie doesn't get promoted this year, he is what he is, isn't he? He's a player that probably earned himself a contract in a lower League One club. His promotion and his performances have been outstanding, and he's reached the levels that we always thought he could do. And absolutely delighted. I texted him, and I think I got an answer about 6 o'clock in the morning, so I can only imagine where he was and what he was doing. And then I've texted him again and said, look, well done, fantastic move. I did mention actually for him to get a good move when he got promoted, and I am absolutely over the moon for him, because when we took him from Hendon, he was so raw. If you already remember how raw he was, and I remember the game. It might have been against, was it here or was it at Northampton, where he got absolutely where were we? Sunderland, where he got absolutely battered by the crowd. And I thought his character after that, when he still came back into training, and then he got himself in the side, and they had a bad ankle injury, And then, you know, he never really was liked by the last manager and the manager before that. So there you go. So even the best managers in the world can't get it right all the time. But I'm delighted for him. The club will benefit, and it helps the club. And we should know in the next week or so what that figure is. But it certainly will be a figure which helps the football club. And I can only wish him all the best going forward.
In terms of the aims for next season, and Peter, what is the current ambition for next season? And you know, it would be good for fans to know to kind of manage their expectations.
Well, I mean, you know, COVID is still one of the most important things. I'd love to tell you I want to go up, and of course I do. You know, I'm not in the game to just cruise through. I'd love to challenge, but I know the difficulties. You know, you're going to have 7 clubs in this division who've spent a huge amount of money on players before the deadline day last week, the week before last, who've got squads and budgets in excess of 3 million. They're going to be very, very strong. It's going to be very difficult to break into the top 7 or 8, I think, in this division. But saying that, the big things that are going to be on our mind are COVID. If we get a second spike halfway through the season, what does that do to us? You know, I think we have to just get through this at the minute and hopefully utilise this next season to build and be strong and survive. I don't want to be fighting at the bottom, but you know, if we finish mid-table and we've developed a lot of young lads and a few have moved on and we've sold a few and we can then do that season by season. Hopefully we'll get stronger and the manager will start to get more influence on the team and hopefully experience in his job and we'll challenge then. We'll start to challenge. We'll do our best. We're always going to go out there and do our best, but I'm quietly confident the fans will be surprised on the performances and the way these players will play. In the 2 games I've seen, and I thought the first half against Doncaster, we could have been 3 or 4-0 quite comfortably. Poor old Kev, I mean, he's had his best chance. The keeper's made an absolute blinder, and then the others he's missed. And we could have been 3 or 4-0 up. And we put our second half. We put the youngsters at the back, and they still did us proud. And it was a really good game. And against Hull, I thought the tempo was fantastic. We never let Hull settle. Again, we could have been 2 or 3-0 up there, and I thought they've done really well. So what we're asking of them, they're doing, and hopefully over the coming games and the coming weeks, you can all get to know them a little bit, which would be nice. They're good lads, and I think they'll deliver for the football club.
You mentioned a couple of the young lads that came in against Doncaster and obviously played some game time against Hull as well. Are there any fans should be watching out for? Because obviously we've seen Charlie Barks in a couple of games, and we think he's quite useful. But is there any more that we should be looking out for this next season, next couple of seasons?
I think it's going to be difficult. I'm focused on the group that we've got at the minute. I think when I start to sit down with Tony and Russ about the others that are coming through, I mean, all the lads we've got, Rain has done very, very well. I think actually all 5 of the lads who are on pro contracts who've come through have got great opportunity here and are good lads. But I think it'd be nice for the fans. It would be great when the fans can see and watch and make their own minds up, because I think that's when they're really going to take to these. And we could do with a few new heroes. I was looking through a book the other day. I don't know who it was. It was about legends or something. Anyway, about all the old players, and and I was having a look through it, and it was block capital letters not joined up, so I guess who it is.
Never heard of it, Peter.
No. So anyway, I was having a look through, and I think all the legends, and we're just lacking some. We've had some over the years. We've had some great players who've come in and done really, really well for us. And it was wonderful to see Connor Townsend reach the Premiership. I mean, that is it's outstanding from where he was, and Dwayne doing so well, and Muzzer, and I'm sure Hatch will do well when he gets himself settled. And not only that, you see the likes of Josh and Paddy doing well at Fleetwood and making a career out of themselves. You see the lads that we brought initially, the Luke Waterfalls, Perrys, and the Boyces all get a bit of a chance at a career in league football. I mean, that's what it's all about. I just want to see these lads really, really come forward, and this is why I over games. We went into non-league because I wanted to work at that level. I wanted to work with lads. But now having that ability, whether that's by means or not, I'm really looking forward to it. And I think all the lads, I just want the fans to watch and play. You know, I'm gutted that we can't get in front of fans and just show you what we've got. And certainly when we have the opportunity to do that, you'll be proud of us, all of them.
Just a couple on the stadium, because we've been sent loads of questions about this. Are current plans for the redevelopment on hold for now?
Yeah, COVID's pretty much killed that, hasn't it? At the minute, I mean, we can't do anything. No one's going to spend money in football at the minute. No one's going to spend it on development. But we are working closely with 2 or 3 developers. That still goes on, and we've still got some other plans that we hope to put in, which we'll finalise certainly by the end of the year, which will show how we want the whole area to look like, and potentially a new training facility. So, you know, we're still working on that. It's just this just killed everything. I mean, you know, people are losing their lives, losing their jobs. I mean, it's horrendous. We're going to have nearly 3 million unemployed. I mean, it's very difficult at the minute to invest in anything. So, but it's there. We've done it. We've got our planning, which is a good thing. And hopefully we can sort of move on with that. But first thing is we just need to get fans back in, and then we'll worry about what the facilities we need after that, I think.
Has the development of the apartments taken priority now over the stadium, or are you still hoping to do both together when you obviously when time allows and COVID's over and things like that?
Well, the apartments were really key, you know, to get us the finance to kickstart us on the other stuff. So yeah, the apartments are quite key. Like I say, we've got some other plans which are quite exciting coming through, which hopefully will embed us and financially secure us for a long time. And that's what I'm planning at the minute. You know, with the way the leagues are going and this new salary cap and the way football is going, I think the most important thing is we retain our football league identity. And to do that, you've got to improve your facilities a little bit. You've got to make sure that you invest as much as you can in the football team, and that is going to be investment in training facilities. I think we need to bring the academy and the 23s and the first team together. They're all it's great having them in the community, but we need a facility, and that has to be on our agenda now more than ever, because under 21 players are playing a huge part in the future of football in the lower division. So we need to make sure those facilities are better, and we're certainly looking at that.
On to the last one then, Peter. Do you have a message or a sentiment you'd like to share with the fans as we head into the new season?
Wow, yeah. It's a long time since March. I mean, I was sitting the other day and you know, we're getting mid-August now, and in March they locked us up a bit, didn't they? They locked us up and they said, right, I don't want you to come out of your house because there's this horrible virus which is killing people, and we don't know how to handle it. Where, you know, we need to stop work. We need to pay billions out, which taxpayers will have to pay in the end. So I think for me, it's I just want people to come back through this safely. I want them to be able to go to a football match without worrying whether they're going to catch a disease. And I don't mean that from a burger or a hot dog, you know, because that's probably the most chance they would have got probably in the past. But certainly this disease has really affected everybody. You know, we all know somebody we've lost, and there are still people suffering, and we don't even know the long-term issues that will be caused by this. So, you know, they're talking about a vaccine in the early part of next year. So it's still going to be a very, very difficult season. I'd just like the fans to bear with us. I'm going to ensure the club is here, it's safe, it survives. I'm ready for when the fans are comfortable to come back in. And as soon as we get any details on when we can have fans in and how many we can in, I just want fans to come and buy a season ticket, because they'll be the first ones through the door, and we will make sure they're entertained absolutely 100%. That would help us get through. Just getting those extra 1,200 or 1,400 season tickets and having those 2,000 people coming through the gate every week initially would be fantastic. So I do think coming and paying cash on the door is going to be very difficult. I think that's going to be, you know, that won't be until the new year. So people will have to buy blocks of tickets, I think, and then they'll be on a list. So whatever number you are, you know, if we're allowed 2,000 in and there's 2,000 season tickets, they'll be the ones let in, no one else. So as soon as that happens, we'll keep them notified. But just bear with us, trust us. You know, I've got the club safe and secure. We're going through a few changes, but I'm really hoping, you know, I've got my fingers crossed. You can't see it, but I have. I've got my fingers crossed, and I hope that the decisions I've made are the right ones. And I'll continue to make those decisions if I feel they're needed to protect the interests of the club going forward.
And as Matt said, we'll end there. Peter Swann, as ever, thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
And thank you everybody for listening, especially if you tuned into the live broadcast tonight, and we'll see you on the next one.